And we're live. Well, welcome back to the Moment Makers podcast. I've got another special guest. It's just me today. Eli's not able to be on this one. I've got Ben Cadle with me. Say hey, Ben.
Hi.
He's a musician. That's probably what you're best known for, at least around the area here.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and you play in a band with Tyler Davidson, who we had on in our last episode.
Mm.
So that's kind of cool to see different perspectives from the same group of people, and kind of going on with that. How's your
Yeah.
quarantine?
Pretty. It's been about 3 weeks now with no work. The first week I did absolutely nothing. And then I slowly started working on my parents' property and everything like that because I'm staying up here. And we've got quite a few acres and some farm type situation here. So I've just been working around here mostly, and besides that, just working on music and going on a lot of drives because I love driving, but I can't, like, I have no reason to drive now.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, I'll just, like, 2 nights ago at 1 a.m., I went for a 2-hour drive just because,
Nice.
my
Yeah.
sleep schedule's too screwed up anyway.
Well, cool. So you've been quarantined for 3 weeks. You've been out of work for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
How has that change been? Have you? I guess the normal routine that you're in. You said your sleep schedule's off, so that's a big difference in
Hmm.
in life. How has the transition been into to not doing something every day?
Um, a lot of self-motivation has went away.
Yeah.
But within that, I think I've found myself pushing. Once you go so far without self-motivation to do something, I think you eventually start getting a rut in your mind's like, okay, this has got to end. This has got to end. We've got to do something to start being productive again. We got to do something to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
So after a while, it just skyrocketed into, well, what is slowly skyrocketing into productivity and primarily my music and everything like that. Been writing a lot of stuff that I've been wanting to write for a long time.
Well, cool. And so we can kind of jump into the not really topic because there's really not a topic for this podcast, but we can kind of jump into the discussion of
Yeah.
kind of mental health and
Yeah.
music for most people is a big part in their mental health, keeping that self care routine intact. Is that a big part for you?
Self-care for me has always been kind of a wishy-washy thing, to say the least. I'd say I'll go through bouts of trying to be very health conscientious, both physically and mentally. Um, what was the question?
Is music a way of like therapy for your mental health? I guess is a better way to put it.
For sure, but I don't think it's like
You don't really think of it that way, but it is.
yeah.
Right?
It's not like I'm like, oh, gotta take my evening vitamins to stay healthy, and that's me like listening to certain songs or whatever. By no means, but I mean, I definitely think for me, it might be harder for me to articulate how I feel with words correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely feel like I can't say exactly how I feel with words. And I feel like with music, it definitely gives me the opportunity to not only portray that to other people, show what I mean through my own creativity, but it also goes to show, like, I think a lot of music out there sort of communicates to me in a way that a lot of other things don't. There's certain feelings, and I want to say aura or whatever, like certain auras or whatever, but certain sensations that I personally can get from music that are much more relieving than any sort of de-stressor or anything like that. I mean, playing live music is one of the most absolute freeing, beautiful things that I've ever done. Like, it's such a stress reliever to put on a show and get up there and physically exert yourself and pour out your body's creativity and produce something for the world. Like, you're not, I think that's a big thing, is output, because as a society we're always consuming everything all the time. When's the last time we really actually put something out, created something? It's so easy to not finish things. It's so easy to just say, oh yeah, I'll totally do this, it's a great idea, and then never ever do it or speak of it again. So that brambled off into a completely different tangent, but I think that's a valid point nonetheless.
Well, and so kind of what you're saying is the act of playing music is kind of a release.
Oh yeah.
For lack of a better way of putting it. And I think that's the same for a lot of people that are musicians. Not just that music is a big part of their life, but that are musicians and that play music frequently in live performances. That's something that Tyler even spoke on when we had our podcast with him in our last episode. And music's a big part of your life, and it's something that you're actually pursuing a little bit further. The corona that came in halted your plans, but you're actually planning on moving out of state to pursue that venture at some point in the future.
Yeah, that is the plan in my head, but I gotta tell you, Brennan, as a person, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just taking it day by day.
Well, I think that's how most of us are right now, especially with this virus stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, can't really look too far into the future right now because we have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, this could be 2 weeks, it could be 3 months, and there's no way to know which way it's going to go. So
it could end up being 9 months. It could end up being. There's a lot.
Talking more about, I guess, music, and since it's such a big part of your life, what first got you into music and got you started in that sphere of expression, I guess?
Well, to take it, if we want to go really in depth here, I mean, I am the youngest child of 5, in a household of 5, and so I really don't, like, I would say I didn't necessarily get a lot of attention at that point because my parents were like, just, after 5, they're like, screw it, So, I was always told I was a very independent child. Like, I didn't need people to, like, I would always be, like, in my little rocker thing, rocking myself to sleep at night. So, I think I grew up very independent and without attention, and eventually I started wanting attention. And I think when I got to the age where I actually first started meeting you, I think at that point I was realizing I can get, like, my voice can be heard if I play music. Like, that's something I can, like, I'll be heard. Like, this, I'll be seen. I'll be out there. I'll be a person, I won't just be, like, another
scenes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I realized that with music. I don't know when I realized it with music, but I know I was always attracted to music from an early age, because I mean I remember the earliest bluegrass records and stuff that my family listened to, because at that, like when I was younger, that's basically all we were allowed to listen to, because drums were evil, and like there's yeah, a lot of stuff.
Gotcha.
So I mean those early bluegrass records I really enjoyed. But I remember when I was like, I want to say like 5 or 6 or something, my brother John actually asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And at like 6 or 7, I was like, I want to be a rock star. And I'm like, well, you're really trying to go for it now. But it's just funny looking back now, remembering to have said that at such a young age, and I had no idea how far I would actually attempt to pursue that, you know. But I try and do, you know, I want to be a session musician, or I've got a lot of different things that I want to do, and it doesn't really matter which one of them successfully go forward.
You're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing which one sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's I mean, that's the best way to do things, especially in the creative field, is kind of having multiple avenues, and whatever sticks and whatever can become a full-time gig is I mean, that's probably the best thing to do, because you have all these avenues that can be something, and then one of them takes off. So that's kind of what we're doing with the podcast and the website and all of that, is we're kind of just throwing everything at the wall and seeing where it kind of lands, and focusing attention on that. So,
well, first, I think, I mean, you have to get it out there, and you got to sort of see what people think in general, and create a fan base, create a core group and everything. And there, I don't know what to tell you. Marketing.
So I guess going more with your past, you had an instance in your life that kind of changed, maybe became who you were. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So my father died when I was 8 years old. So that's let me get a little bit of history on the man himself. He was basically he was a Baptist missionary who went to prisons and preached there, and did missionary work there, and did chalk art, and was a very religious man. I had a very, very religious upbringing, but when I was 8, he died. And then, you know, at 8 years old, it's hard to understand how things affect you, even if you don't. Like, I don't remember crying or anything like that about it. I just remember it sort of happening.
Yeah.
And looking back now, it's made me realize a lot of different things. Like, I have a tendency to repress a lot of emotions without me even really realizing it. And then it ends up coming out in the worst ways, not necessarily angry ways, I would say, but in everything just sort of bottles up, and then it spews out, but it's not anger, it's just a mess. It's just unorganized chaos. So that I obtained that skill from an early age. But I think looking back, most of my father roles were filled by my brothers, my 3 brothers. I have 3 older brothers, Andy, John, and Dave, and a lot of who I am today directly came from them, especially like their music taste and how they acted as people, and like what was right, what's wrong, like moral things like that. And I think it was interesting not really having a father for that period of my life, because with 3 brothers, I can look and just be like, I can see how they're acting, and I can be like, okay, I like this, I don't like this, and I like this. I like to think that I sort of took my social skills from my brother John, because he's a very good social charmer. But I think we're all deep thinkers as well. So I think I took like bits and pieces from all of my siblings, including my sister as well, not to denote her impact by any means, because she definitely did. But I wouldn't necessarily say she filled a fatherly role. But yeah, it definitely greatly impacted me, and still to this day, I'm finding out ways that it impacted me that I didn't even realize. Right now, like as a person, I have been going through sort of a mental growth period that I haven't went through a resurgence like this in a very, very, very long time, I think. Because I just recently went on a trip out west. I, went around, well, not around, but through America, um, and lived on the road and just sort of saw the country. And that was a good, nice, reflective time for me. And that was the first time in how long had it been? In like 4 years that I had more than like 4 days off of work or something, because I had worked full time from 16 until like now, or 6 months ago. And to have that, to stop working completely and just go do whatever, I traveled around. I did over 100 hours of driving, and that gives you so much time to really think to yourself and really dig in your mind. And I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship, one that was not necessarily very healthy. And so it had made me realize, I've been focusing a lot of my energy on the wrong things. And 2, I've been ignoring a lot of issues within myself that I didn't even realize were really there. So the more time you spend with yourself, I really think the more you get to know yourself, and then you're able to get to the root of a problem and then sort of dig it up and fix it from the bottom up. And I think that's kind of it's the perfect time right now for almost everybody to do that same thing. We all have time right now. This is the thing we've been waiting for. Like we've always said, I wish I had more time or whatever to do the things we want to do. At least that's how I've felt. And then this happened. We can take this time, look at our habits, look at our mental health, and look at it from the ground up and restart everything, your daily habits and everything. You can do that right now. This is probably your only chance you're ever going to get in our adult lives, to really restart.
It's really funny that you say that, because the last 2 episodes, me and Eli did an episode, and then I did an episode with Tyler. In both episodes, we've talked about the fact that this virus has made it a good and a bad thing for a lot of people, where they're alone with themselves. They're alone with their thoughts. They're not able to go throughout their normal routine.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that's the end of the world, because they're alone with themselves. For a lot of people like you and like me, we're able to dig deeper and find what makes sense us. So it's cool to see kind of your side of it, because Eli had the side of where he has a lot of friends that are going crazy because they're just alone at home and they can't think of what to do. They have to be alone with their thoughts, and for a lot of people that's not good, or at least they don't have the tools to handle that. But it's cool to see the perspective of kind of more of an optimist and more of a, as you kind of said yourself, a deeper thinker, where you use that time to dig into yourself intentionally and kind of pull out the things that you don't like.
I definitely think it is necessary and definitely good to be alone with yourself, because I mean, who in this life, in your life, who are you going to spend the most time with? Yourself. You need to be able to understand yourself. And I feel like so many people think they understand themselves, but the more the deeper they dig, the more they'll realize how much they don't realize how small things from their past have affected them and changed their daily habits and changed their mindsets. And think about why is it that being alone is driving you crazy? Why is it that these thoughts are why are these bad things? They shouldn't be bad things. You should be good. You should be happy being around yourself. You should be the one person you need to be okay with. You're the one person who's always going to be around. You should be able to always count on yourself. And if you can't, that's not a terrible thing. We're human. Like, that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to be all constantly great at the same time. But it just goes to show, don't ignore it. Don't act like everything is fine when you just need to acknowledge maybe there is something I could fix.
Yeah.
We're not all perfect. We all need to work on ourselves, I think, pretty consistently, or else we'll be stagnant. And I think once you're stagnant, then you really don't have too much use for the modern world, or just the world in general. I think the most useful people are the people who actively try and change and better themselves as much as possible, and I think everybody does that in their own ways, for sure.
What are some ways that you do that?
As weird as it sounds, like the other night when I said I went for a 2-hour drive at 1 a.m., that was me going on a 2-hour drive at 1 a.m. listening to like old musical projects that I did, and just thinking about the past, and then just thinking about how I acted back then and who I was back then, and then looking at myself now, and I'm like, whoa, when did this happen? Where did this happen? When did I become this person? And just like tracing back, like, okay, slowly, it's less about tracing back. It's like going back and then tracing it to now, because
kind of figuring out how you got to where you are.
Yeah. And once you understand that, I started to get a better understanding of, okay, that's why I'm here. And then I started going even further back and further back. And then I started asking more questions and more questions, which have led me to some interesting answers. I've learned a lot about myself, I feel like, but it's led me to more questions. So I think the more you get to know yourself, the more questions you ask about your history. But I think how I've taken care of myself mentally is just, for me, my solace is driving. Like, when I'm not, like, when it's not music, it's driving. But when I'm driving, I'm listening to music, so it's kind of the same thing. But and I think everybody needs to have just something that they can do that just sort of soothes them like that. I enjoy driving because, remember when you and me first became friends, like, most of our relationship was based around being in a car and then just having deep conversations as you, like, drove me home from church or whatever. A lot of my relationships were based around cars and things, so I think that's one reason why driving soothes me and helps me get my head into a good mental space and helps me feel good. Also, gotta be productive. It's so easy to not be productive.
Yeah.
You gotta do something with your day during quarantine. You have to do something. Like, give yourself one project a day, just something. Like, this was my thing today. I have no idea what I'm doing tomorrow. I have no idea what I'm doing for the next few months, but I'm like, I am doing this tomorrow at 10:30, and I was still half an hour late. But, it's fine. You just gotta.
And that's something that we've talked about too, is picking one thing. And for some people, it's one thing every day. For some people, it's one thing that they want to improve on, or one skill that they want to kind of obtain during this time that they have by themselves. For some people, that's learning how to draw. It's learning how to play guitar. It's doing something where you have a goal that's easily obtainable, even if it's just picking up the guitar and noodling.
Right.
That's something that you can say is a win. It's something you can psychologically tell yourself, I did this thing, so what's holding me back from doing this other thing tomorrow?
Right.
And then compounding on that day by day. Where by the end of this quarantine, you know how to play whatever you want to play, or you know how to draw a beautiful painting, or whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
I think it's funny that you bring that up, and that's kind of the theme over the last few episodes, is that in quarantine there's a lot of stuff that you can do to kind of keep yourself motivated, to keep your sights goal oriented,
Yeah.
and to not let this time with yourself be a bad time.
Yeah.
You can find healthy ways of kind of using that to better yourself.
Yeah. I think the timing of this, I am kind of severely lucky, I think, because if this happened last year around this time, I would have had a very terrible alcohol problem.
Okay.
Because for years and years and years, I had a very bad alcohol problem. But just actually after, like during and after my trip, the want and need for it just slowly went away for whatever reason. Why? I don't know. Don't ask. But I am definitely very thankful for that, because this is like the perfect time for people to consume bad habits and, work on those things in bad ways. And I gotta say, I've had like a bottle of gin for 3 weeks, and I've touched it like once. So it's
Well, that's a win in itself. Is
yeah,
if it's a problem, staying away from something. So it's
yeah,
and
you have to
go ahead.
you have to keep those things in check. Like, even if you're not always your best, even if you do drink, even if you do whatever you may do, just it's fine if you do it. Just know that you do it and keep it in check. Like, don't pretend that it's not there. Don't pretend that it's not potentially a problem. Not saying it is, but understand that it very well could be. Everyone is susceptible to that type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I was 18 years old and going through withdrawals, and like it was bad there for a little while. You got to keep yourself in check. So I think right now we're going to either see a big boost. Well, we're going to see both. I think we're going to see a big boost of creativity and healthy people. We're going to see a big boost of good things that come from this, but just as equally, we're going to see a lot of people, I think, pick up bad habits and I mean, not even pick up, but enhance and make them more profound right now. Like, when we get out of this, I feel like a lot of people are going to be changed. I don't know if they're going to be changed to the point where they're going to be considered very different, but they're going to be changed. And I think we're all going to be changed in one way or another. And I think it's up to us. Like, you can decide, okay, I'm going to use this time to be good and diligent and try and be the person that I want to be, the person that I've always wanted to be. Or I can use this time and just absolutely waste it and just watch TV, lay on the couch and eat and watch Netflix. Like, I mean, that's fine to an extent. It's all about moderation. I think it's all about moderation in life. It really is. And that's one thing.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with your mental health and kind of what state your mind is in. If you have a very poor mental state, then you're very susceptible to taking on those bad habits and becoming addicted to certain things and dependent on certain things. And I think finding the right thing to be dependent on, maybe that's not the best way of putting it, but for instance, if alcohol is something that's an issue for you, that's a dependency, right? That's something that you're dependent on.
Yeah.
If you're dependent on going and working out, then that's maybe a more productive thing and something that's
Yeah.
more conducive for a better mental state.
Right.
Um, or playing guitar, whatever it is. There's things that you can do in place of certain things that can help
Yeah.
build you into a better person versus kind of tearing you down.
Yeah.
Um,
I definitely agree.
kind of shifting gears, kind of on that kind of that same vein. So you said that you were a pastor's son and that you grew up in the church. Um, is that something that's still a part of your life? Is it something that you use as a tool for your mental health, or is it something that you've kind of gone away from? Because when we talked to Tyler, he had a similar situation where his dad left, but it was when he was a lot older.
Yeah.
He was involved in church, and now he's kind of stepped away. So
Yeah.
for a lot of people, church is a thing that they use to help with their mental state and give them that motivation. And for a lot of people, it's not. And I'm just curious as to what yours is, so that the listeners
Yeah.
can get an idea.
Um, to talk about that, I think I'm going to take a step back to
Go ahead.
at that age when before my father had passed, those in my head are basically the most like religious days. Like that's when my family
Mm-hmm.
would, every Sunday go to church, like we were all very, very adamant. Like
And doctrine.
we were a Christian family, a Baptist family. um, so going from that and then my father dying, it basically led to not a total drop off for everyone, but for a lot of different parties in my family after my father passed, we went the exact opposite direction. So soon after that, like I saw the completely other side to life. I saw I was exposed to like just different like I mean, I was so sheltered, I was a homeschool
Mm-hmm.
kid who lived in a Christian household. I didn't know anything about life. Like I mean, like I remember hearing my first rock song, Dracula by Rob Zombie, and like 7 years old or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, shoot, where was I going with this? um, oh yeah, but I think after my father passed, it sort of slowly tinkered away the religious aspect of my life. And then I was actually thinking about it just yesterday. Actually, I came back sort of into the church when I think it was 2014 or something like that, when we were going to Bethesda.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually my sister and Elijah who got me to go to Bethesda, and that was right after I started playing bass. Mind you, I'm like this 14-year-old kid who has not had a single I didn't have a single friend really. Like I hung out with my sister's friends kind of here and there,
Mm-hmm.
and but I mean, I'd stay in my room and play video games and like smoke cigarettes, at age 14 for my entire every day. And I'd play bass, I would watch TV, and maybe do some school or whatever, because I was homeschooled. I could do everything on my own time, so my sleep schedule was about how it is now. Like going to bed at like 4 and then waking up at 2 or something. I could do that, I could get away with it. But at that age, I implemented myself back into the church, and that's a big, basically, the reason why I know you, the reason why I know anybody
Mm-hmm.
today, is because my sister and Elijah actually brought they didn't force me to, but they invited me to church, and I went with them. And then after that time, Caleb Zopp was there,
Mm-hmm.
and they needed a bass player or something for it, and I just wanted to play music at that age. I'd only been playing for like 3 months, but I knew like I want to do this or whatever. So I started going just for the music because I wanted to play music.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started making friendships, started getting relationships, for the first time, like actually obtaining my own relationships. um, at age 14, 15, right at that age. I was so awkward, such an awkward kid. But I think I gravitated, like I definitely would have considered myself religious at the time, but looking back, I'm pretty sure my motivation for those things were because my friendships and the relationships that I had were based around religion.
Yeah.
So that's why I gravitated it toward that more. And then slowly I started playing music outside of church and had friends outside of church. And once that happened, I started to have my, like, sort of think for myself and question, because I definitely am the type of person to say, like, question everything, nothing is ever quite how it seems. Don't get me started on, like, coronavirus conspiracies,
Yeah.
I like to question things. I like to see, like, what in this world can we really disprove? Think about that. There's not a lot that we can really disprove. So there's a lot of different things that are quite possible. I like to think about those things. So,
I'll kind of pick up from
yeah.
there. So you that kind of backstory into where you are now. You're not in the church anywhere. That's not something that's a part of your life that you spend a lot of time thinking about, and it's not something that you use as a tool.
I definitely think being exposed to Christianity and all that type of stuff at those ages did affect me in a healthy way. Not only from just social skills and everything like that, but like, the Bible and everything has great moral guidance. I really do think so, for the most part. And I try and conduct myself as an individual who, like, I consider myself to be a good person and a nice person. I think most of us do. And I think, just I think the biggest, can I curse on here?
Yeah, you're good.
I think the biggest lesson that religion and Christianity and things like that teach is just don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
And I think that, that moral placement, like, really genuinely consider how your actions affect others and how much good you can do in this world, whether it is for the glory of God or not. These are good things. Do them, it's so easy to be a good person, I think, but it's only it's instinct. You have to, if you overthink it, I think it sort of becomes less good.
Well, and the motives behind it too. I mean, if you're doing it for a purpose, it changes the way that it feels too. And I get what you're saying with that. If you're doing it because you feel like you have to do this transactional thing to get into heaven, then you're not really doing things because you're a good person.
That shouldn't be the point. Yeah. The point is to be a good the point is not to try and be good to get into heaven. The point is be good to be good. Which I think a lot of people in today's day and age kind of forget about that. But I mean, I don't know. Religion is not something I have honestly thought about for a very long time. Yeah. I think about 2 or 3 years ago, about 3.5 years ago, I probably completely stopped going to church or any religious thing like that. And I was just like, there's so much that I necessarily don't really agree with or
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make sense to me
Yeah.
in Christianity and just religion in general, I slowly started realizing, oh, my actual beliefs are different than these beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Not drastically by any means, but enough to be like, if my beliefs are different than this, if I can't put all of my faith in this, then I need to figure out what I can. I need to think for myself. And so I started thinking for myself. I've got a lot of different theories about different things and everything. I just put everything on hold because I'm like, I don't have the capacity to think about, what is the end all be all of spirituality when it
Yeah.
comes to being a human being. I can't think about that right now. I'm trying to focus on being an adult and getting through day-to-day life. Like, it's a struggle just doing that.
Yeah.
And there's not enough time in the world. I seriously, sincerely wish there was 36 hours in a day, because then I feel like I might be able to get everything I want to done.
Well, I think that's a good perspective for people, and we're not a Christian podcast by any means. There's a lot of similarities between what we're doing and what the mission of Christianity is.
Yeah. Which
Um,
the mission of Christianity is definitely a good mission
yeah.
when you get down to its deep core. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's good. These are good things.
Um, I myself go to church. I don't know if Eli does or not. That's not something that we've talked about.
Yeah.
But that being said, I don't want to. I don't want people to feel like that's the only thing that we're trying to do is shove religion down people's throats.
Yeah.
So having perspectives like yours, and we spoke to Tyler in the last episode, he had a similar kind of outlook on it, and
Yeah.
some people might think that I'm being a bad Christian by allowing that to happen, but having different perspectives and hearing why people are the way they are is kind of the purpose of what we're doing
I think that's
Go ahead.
also necessary for good faith, is letting other people be able to question it, and then you coming up with your own solid answers that you believe. Like, it's good, healthy exercise for Christianity and faith, in my opinion. But this is also coming from someone who does not necessarily consider himself Christian. So.
And the purpose of this podcast wasn't to talk about religion and go in depth with that. The purpose of that was more of just to kind of get an idea of who you are and where you're from in a mental capacity. And either way, it seems like you have a good grasp on who you are, who you want to be, and how you deal with things on a daily basis. So,
well, I think it's less that I know who I am, who I want to be, and where I am on a daily basis. It's more so that I realize that I don't know. It's because the more I learn about myself, the more I realize I don't know. And I think that's something everyone needs to take into account. Or maybe it's just me. Shoot, I don't know. Because there's so many... Because once you accept that you don't know everything, you really open a lot of doors. You're subjecting yourself to a lot of different types of thinking. You're subjecting yourself to a lot of, you're subjecting yourself to everything the world has to offer, and you're to pick and choose, what am I? What do I actually believe? Figuring out who you are and doing it genuinely is an incredibly hard thing, because it's so easy to fool yourself.
Yeah.
It's so easy to convince yourself that you're something you're not. And I think a lot of people in today's society are apt and prone to portraying themselves as people who fit into someone else's box.
Gotcha.
I think everyone tries to be, well, this is the person who I want to be like, or, they try and fit themselves into a certain box. And when you do that, I think that really limits your personality and you as a person. And also, I think it's just false
Yeah.
because you can't limit yourself to any sort of human template. Like, I can't compare myself to you any more than you can compare yourself to me
Hmm.
accurately, you
Yeah.
know? Accurately, specifically.
Well, and that's the issue with the influencer culture that we have, is that no one's going to put their worst day on social media. It's always going to be the best picture perfect version of themselves, and that's the mold that we have to compare ourselves to.
Yeah,
So you're already setting yourself at a disadvantage thinking that that's their everyday life.
yeah,
You know, whoever the influencer is that you're following, that's not them.
yeah,
It's
for sure.
a fortified version of themselves to make themselves look better so that they get more followers and that they
Yeah.
influence more people, because that's their job.
I
Which, go ahead.
I think there's a few people who I have encountered in my life who I definitely um, who are definitely good people. They're good at what they do. Um, they're good human beings and everything. But I find that I respect people the most when they don't hide who they are, who
Hmm.
they um, don't try to put on that picture perfect. They're human beings, and
Hmm.
they will show you genuine human connection. They like, I mean, I can look into the eyes of another genuine human being and just see, hey, man, this is a freaking rough day. This is a rough life, man. We're trying out here. I think I have met quite a few people who quite a few people who I respect, who are able to show themselves as genuine human beings without making it feel like it's a weakness, because
Hmm.
it should never be considered a weakness. This is your true self. This is genuine. This is you as a human being. There is a time when you should put on a front, I think, and that's if you're leading people. You need to set an example. This is the mindset we need to have. We need to be cool, calm, and
Hmm.
collected, and approach this from a logical standpoint and things like that.
Hmm.
But I think you always need to be able to step away from that, and in private, whether it's with your really close friends or your significant other or your family or whoever it might be that you can sort of confide in, you know, you need to let your humanity show. You need to let someone in. You can't have
Yeah.
closed walls all the time. You have to show you're a real human. You have to let yourself be a real human. You can't.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people try and force themselves into believing they are something they're not. And I think, I don't know, I could go on even longer of a tangent about people being ingenuine, and I have a big pet peeve about people being disingenuine and everything like that. Uh, I've ranted about it a few times. I'm sure I could do it again, but I won't.
Well, and
Yeah.
we can kind of cut this a little bit short here, just because we try and stick to a certain amount of time so that
Yeah.
people can listen to it. Um, what we can do is have you on again and talk more about kind of that same kind of thing.
Mhm.
I hate to cut you short, but I don't want to extend it over an hour, just because.
I- I'm rambling at this point. I understand.
um, that being said, do you have anything else that you want to add to your opinion on what we're doing or what mental health is to you, or anything in that vein?
um, from my personal experience, I for me, this is what is most important for me. I think, from a mental health standpoint, is just being honest and genuine with yourself. And once you can be honest and genuine with yourself, you can start being honest and genuine with other people. And when you start being honest and genuine with other people, they see that genuity, and people are attracted to it because they're like, this is a genuine human being. They aren't putting up any barriers. Like, why? Like, in today's society, everybody does that.
Yeah.
So if you start to allow yourself to be who you actually are and understand you don't know who you are, then that's the first stepping stone to becoming who you are.
Yeah.
I think, anyway.
Well, I think that's a good point to end it on. Because being yourself is the best way to be yourself. And in this time is the best way to figure out who you are. Figure out what you like, what you don't like, and be alone with yourself and allow that to be a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So, well, we'll go ahead and end it here. Leave us a 5-star review on the Apple Podcasts page. If you leave a comment on the page, it enters you into a chance to win a free T-shirt. Which you have one of the shirts. What would you say the quality is of them?
Honestly, it's very, very, very good. I was surprised with how good it was. It's super soft. It's super great. And very, like, the actual design on it is very good. I am very happy with the quality, I must say.
Well, cool. Well, you heard it from him. We didn't pay him to say that, so.
It's true.
Well, thanks, Ben. It was a pleasure having you on. We'll have you on again here soon, probably, just to catch up on you and see how your quarantine's going. Stay tuned, and we'll see you guys in the next one.